You're listening to episode 24 of the Deliberately Transformed Woman podcast with Makaela Moore. Welcome to the Deliberately Transformed Woman podcast. You're about to discover a whole new way of viewing yourself and the world. I'm Makaela Moore, your host, intuitive leadership coach, former HR professional, mother, wife, and self-confessed nerd who loves brain science, Boston Terriers, rustic homewares, and acreage life. My mission is to help women in business to shift their identity and become fearless leaders in life and work so they can stop walking on eggshells and finally be the confident leaders they aspire to be. Unlike other coaches who focus on traditional goal setting and leadership strategies, I use my signature framework, which combines brain science, subconscious reprogramming, and intuition with leadership principles to help women to transform their life from the inside out. So if you're the type of person who wants to let go of the things holding you back and bust through fear, procrastination, and perfectionism, and step into a life that is fulfilling, courageous, and intentional, then this podcast is for you. I'm so happy you're here. Hi, and thanks for joining me. In last week's episode, I spoke a few times about our personal power, owning our personal power, standing in our personal power, and not giving away our personal power or allowing anyone to steal it. But it occurred to me when I was explaining a situation to my daughter recently that I've come a long way with my personal development, having learnt so much about myself, my subconscious programming, psychology, and human behaviours in general from my coaches and my mentors. And it occurred to me that there's just so many people out there who they don't know this stuff, which is obviously why I'm here to share it with you. And until 2 years ago, I didn't know what personal power meant. So I figured that many of you may not fully understand it yet either, hence today's podcast topic. So what the heck actually is our personal power? So I want to first start with a little story of something that happened last week, because I'm going to use this as a bit of an example today. So last week, we had some tradies doing some work on a shed at our property here. And in hooking up their power leads, they inadvertently unplugged our water pump. And being on acreage without town water, if we don't have power, we don't have water. I was a little annoyed that I couldn't have my shower that morning, but I knew what had probably happened, so I got dressed, I went outside to sort it all out in, what I intended to be a very nice, calm, normal manner. Like, I deal with tradies regularly because we also own a trade business. So, going out there to sort it out with them wasn't a drama for me whatsoever. Graham wasn't here to do it at the time, so, I had to do it. Anyway, it should have been such a simple conversation about, just changing where they had plugged in their tools. But clearly this guy had woken up on the wrong side of the bed. I won't go into all the details, but he was very rude and rather obnoxious, and I just wasn't happy about being spoken to in the manner that he had spoken to me, and particularly not when I am paying him. I'm paying that person to do a job. Anyway, I spoke my mind in a fairly calm manner, stating exactly what I wanted to happen and what we expected, etc. And I also asked them to turn their rather loud radio down, which did not go down very well at all, and it just provoked him even further. I walked away from it all before it could get any further heated, and I had my daughter Sydney, she's only 8. She was also there witnessing it all. Anyway, we went back inside the house, and as we got ready for our day, and even as I drove her to school, Sid kept ruminating on the situation of, what the guy did and what he said wrong and things that I, coulda, woulda, shoulda said to him. She couldn't figure out why I wasn't angrier with him or why I wasn't upset about the situation, which got me to thinking about how the old me would have been so pissed off to the point of allowing it to ruin my whole day. And so our drive to school that morning turned into a lesson on what personal power is, how precious it is, and how we don't want to give it away to just anyone. Or actually, we don't want to give it away to anyone at all. In hindsight, I wish I had recorded that conversation with her because it was such a good one. It's amazing how insightful kids can be, when you teach them the big life lessons. Anyway, in a nutshell, our personal power is our own inner strength and confidence. It's our ability to manage our mind and our life. It's understanding and knowing what our subconscious beliefs are and how they've held us back in life, and then reprogramming them to live a life that is uniquely ours and not at the mercy of other people. Using, owning, or sitting in our personal power is all about self-mastery and not allowing other people to impact our lives unless we want them to. It's that inner knowing that everything external to you is out of your control, and because you can't control that, you don't then allow it to control you or your emotions. Using your personal power is also about recognizing when subconscious fears are holding you back and being able to dismiss them and move forward regardless. And a huge one here is the fear of judgment from other people. When I learned about this one, everything in my life changed. When I realized that my fear of judgment and caring way too much about what other people thought of me was actually stopping me from living my life, I also then realized that by allowing that fear of judgment to stop me from doing things was basically handing my personal power and control of my own life over to someone else, pretty much on a silver platter. And the people I'm talking about in many cases aren't just friends and family, but acquaintances and complete strangers. Now, if I asked you just out of the blue to allow a complete stranger to make an important decision about your life, would you be happy to do that? Of course not. But by worrying about what other people might think or say about you, and then allowing that worry to affect you in one way or another, or to impact whether you do or don't do something, you are then effectively handing them your personal power and giving them control of your life. I had always heard the saying that what other people think of me is none of my business. And I remember the first time I heard that, I was in staunch disagreement, as if I needed to know everything that everybody thought of me. Oh my God, that would be so exhausting if we did, not to mention like a complete roller coaster ride. But the more I think about that statement, the more true it becomes, because what other people think, whether it's about me or something or someone else, it actually is none of my business. Other people's thoughts are their own. None of my business. Those are their thoughts to have and to own, and theirs alone. And yet we still do or don't do things in our life that we do or don't want to do, or differently to how we would love to do them, because we are trying to please other people or to make an impression, and ultimately we are not living our best life. We are not being true or authentic to ourselves, and that is one of the biggest ways we give away our personal power. But we can also give away our personal power in some really subtle ways, like procrastination, perfectionism, self-sabotage, codependency, which that's basically making sure that everyone else around us is okay before us, and hinging our own happiness on other people's happiness, and other subtle ways that we give away our personal power. Like when we get angry at someone or at something, and we are giving that external being our personal power. When we stay angry at something, we give away our power. When we spend hours or the whole day ruminating over something that ticked us off, we give away our personal power to whatever that thing or that person was. When we ruminate over something, or we stay angry, or we simply can't let something go, we are allowing those external events to take control of us, of our emotions and our thoughts and our actions throughout the day. How often have you been cut off by a driver on the road, and however it happens, you drive away feeling really angry at that person, and then several hours later you're still thinking about it, not being productive at work or doing whatever it is that you were going to be doing. You've not only allowed that external event to derail your day, But as I told my daughter after that event with the rude tradie last week, if I were to remain angry with him, it has absolutely no impact on him whatsoever. He's just getting on with his day, probably completely unconcerned with my anger. Whether I am angry or not at him will not change the situation. All it will serve to do is to ruin my day. So by making a choice to let it go, knowing, yes, that, something I didn't like had happened, but ultimately in the grand scheme of things, it didn't matter. And if I can let that go, I am then stepping into my personal power and choosing to just get on with my day. I am choosing to be unaffected by someone else. I am choosing to not give my power away to some rude person to then control how the mood of my day goes. Why should they have power over how I feel or how my day goes? And when you put it like that, it sounds so obvious, yet so many people allow others to control or at least influence their thoughts, their feelings and emotions, effectively hijacking their brain, their day, and pretty much their life. Explaining this to my 8-year-old felt amazing. These are the lessons that we all need as kids. I only wish I'd learnt all of this many years ago. If I had, life would be so different now, but it is never too late for any of us. You can always tell when you're not sitting in your personal power because you can feel it in your gut. If you feel stuck, inadequate, insecure, resentful, jealous, frustrated, angry, fearful, out of control, apprehensive, or if you're sitting with some guilt, whenever you feel any of these types of emotions, you can bet that it is being caused by you not exercising your personal power. And when I mentioned this to my daughter, which, let me say, when you describe this stuff to an 8-year-old, it takes on a whole different meaning, and you really get to see the basics of things. Like, things really are much simpler, and maybe we should all just start explaining things like we're talking to an 8-year-old. Anyway, when I was describing it to her, she did ask if it meant that she had to be the boss of other people and control them. And of course, the answer to that is a very big fat no. This is all about self-mastery and learning to manage yourself from within. So it has absolutely nothing to do with other people and everything to do with you. This is 100% purely inner work, which when you do it well, it will transform your life in your outside world too. But it must start on the inside or it will never work. Reclaiming your personal power it first starts with recognizing the stories and the beliefs that you hold in your subconscious, understanding that they are not necessarily truth or fact. We often hold ourselves back in life because of the beliefs that we have about the way things should be, and that's purely because of our subconscious programming in our childhood. We don't even realize that most of what we think that we know is not even true. It's just stories that we've created for our life and how life should be, based on the filters of the beliefs that were instilled in us as kids. And doing this work, it takes great courage because it's not the easiest thing you'll ever do, but it is certainly the most worthwhile. And when it comes to personal power in the workplace, people usually equate power with a job title. When you're appointed to a powerful role, it's naturally assumed that you have power. But regardless of what position you hold or what your job title is, if you aren't owning your own personal power through integrity, commitment, influence, vulnerability, compassion, confidence, understanding, and an awareness of yourself and others, then your credibility as a person of power is completely shot. Being handed a position of power does not give you power. Authentic power comes from you internally and not from any external sources or job titles. We all have this power to use, but we just need to learn how to connect with it and to sit in it with complete confidence and authenticity. I'm noticing that there is a huge change in consciousness among many people at the moment, but particularly I'm noticing it among women in business. More than ever before, we are realizing that the world isn't actually what or how we have been brought up to believe that it is. As we begin to recognize the false beliefs and stories of our lives, we also recognize that we're stuck in repeating patterns in how we live our lives, and discovering and uncovering and leaning into our personal power is all about owning everything that is in and out of our lives. It's all about being honest with ourselves and making different choices, even if societal beliefs or norms differ from that. It's about trusting ourselves and listening to our gut or our intuition and really leaning into that inner knowing or that gut feel on whether something is right for you or not, and trusting that and having the confidence to go for it. And when we trust ourselves and we believe in ourselves and our decisions, we can actually stop relying on other people to help make decisions for us, because they don't always know what is right for us or not. And when we outsource those decisions and we rely on other people to make decisions for us or to tell us what to do, we are not sitting in our personal power. We are not owning that. We get to make choices in every moment of every day. And by owning our personal power, we not only get to create new patterns and habits, but we get to write new stories of what our life should look like. We get to create our own definition of success and happiness instead of what society would have us believe is the definition of success and happiness. If you've ever found yourself finding blame in others, even for the simple things in life, then you're sitting in a place of victimhood or blamehood and not in a place of personal power. When things happen in life, and let's face it, stuff doesn't go according to plan for most of us on a daily basis. But when things happen or don't happen, instead of blaming someone or something for making them happen, if we can turn that back on ourselves and just accept that this thing happened and it is what it is, that it's not the end of the world, then that is sitting in our power and not allowing external sources to impact our emotional state or take anything away from us. When we accept responsibility for everything that is or isn't in our life, or for things that have or haven't happened, then no one or nothing can hold any power over us. Accepting responsibility is the ultimate way to own your personal power, because anything else is simply allowing other people to steal it from you. There's so much more I could talk about on this subject, but I think that's probably enough for one day. I really hope that you're able to walk away from this episode with a whole new perspective on owning your position in this world. And if so, then my job is done for today. I love talking all about this, and God, just ask my daughter. So just know there'll be more episodes that incorporate these principles because I do love talking about it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you're having a lovely week, and I would love it if you would jump on over to my Facebook group, Deliberately Transformed with Makaela Moore, to chat with me about this. Just be sure to tag me. I'm going to make it a new practice where I jump in that group every week and create a conversation about the podcast episode. Yeah, it'll be like a weekly topic in there. Anyway, thanks for listening today. Take care, and I will catch you next week where I'll be holidaying up on Fraser Island, and I dare say I'll end up recording next week's episode from there. All right, bye for now. Cheers. Thanks for listening. The fact that you're here means that you find value in this podcast, and if you're finding value here, then your friends and family will too. So do them and me a favour if you will, and share this podcast with them, please. If you'd like more inspiration and to connect with other Deliberate Transformers, head on over to my Facebook group, Deliberately Transformed with Makaela Moore. You'll find the link in the show notes. You'll also want to hit subscribe to make sure that you never miss an episode. Until next time, take care.